Let's talk a little bit about the Resident Evil franchise and specifically my time spent with Resident Evil Reverse. What you're going to be looking at today is a gameplay tutorial that I captured on my PlayStation 5, and then you're going to see me play a quick match so you can get a sense for what the game is about. And I'd love to give you guys all of my thoughts and impressions, but before I do, I would love for you guys to subscribe. I really appreciate the support, and it helps my channel grow. All right, so Resident Evil Reverse is the next attempt at a Capcom multiplayer game that is based in the Resident Evil universe. Resident Evil has a rich pedigree. I guess that's really the best place to start. When you think about Resident Evil, I mean, people are probably instantly drawn to one particular title over another, or a particular jump scare they had, or some crazy moment that they saw throughout the numerous games that Resident Evil has, come to all these different platforms. It's a lot of content. So Resident Evil Reverse is a mashup type of game where it takes a little bit of all of the greatest parts of Resident Evil, whether it be the level design, whether it be some of the most iconic characters, iconic weapons, or even iconic villains, and it mashes them all up into this multiplayer deathmatch experience. Now, I have to say that I, being a huge Resident Evil fan, instantly gravitated to something like this because I think Resident Evil is a phenomenal base for a lot of game concepts. It typically seems to tend to the third person or first person survival horror game, but I think there is a place for a horde mode, a more fledged out horde mode, not ones we've seen before in Time Attacks or Survive as Long as You Can, but really a bona fide like Gears of War experience horde mode. I see this being a great survival game. I see this being a great strategy game. There's a lot of really cool things that Resident Evil could become, but I have to give them credit. At least Reverse is kind of thinking outside the mold. Now the question is it any fun? I think it is. I just don't know what the lasting appeal of this game is going to be. So it is, if you're familiar with Resident Evil, it's going to take place in locations that you distinctly remember. The beta only took place in the Raccoon City Police Department from the Resident Evil 2 game, which is great because it's pretty much a recreation of that, albeit shrunk down obviously to create more of a dynamic deathmatch type mode. And it was basically a 5-player free-for-all. The core mechanics are running around, picking up guns, shooting enemies, and when you die, turning into a bioweapon, which is an interesting mechanic outside of just a standard deathmatch. Now, if they just did standard deathmatch, despite the fact I love so many of these characters, I just don't know if I would be able to stay with it for so long because there's not really a lot here. When you're not fighting waves and waves of monsters or zombies or any of these, famous villains, the game does kind of wear itself out just a little bit, I think. So the fact that they give you kind of both of those modes does help a lot. Now, I had to lower the control sensitivity because I have such a hard time playing this game on controller. I've always struggled with Resident Evil games on controller, and unfortunately this one is no different. But despite that, I think I did okay enough. You can at least understand kind of what the core mechanics are of this game. And it's going to boil down to just a very simple things. Number one, you're going to run around. You're going to shoot people. You're going to pick up ammo. You can pick up herbs to heal yourself. And you can pick up these virus containers, which come in handy when you die. And I'll get to that in a second. On top of that, each character has 2 different skills moves that they can use. So these are on a cooldown timer, but they allow you to do different things. So I played as Hunk. Hunk is one of my absolute favorite characters of any video game ever. I think Hunk is just so underrated. Doesn't get nearly as much love as he should. So my 2 abilities are this cloak ability where I can basically turn transparent for a short amount of time, And then I have this wrist blade ability, which is really good up close to kind of jab somebody in the stomach for pretty much an instant kill, it seemed like to me. And the majority of the game is going to be spent running around shooting people. Now, when you die, that is where, and you're seeing I just killed that one enemy, they morph into a biomutant. When you die, you actually respawn right where you died, and you morph into a biomutant. Depending on how many virus canisters you pick up as you are playing, will determine just how powerful your biomutant variant is. But I will say, in the matches that I played, I didn't have an issue at all killing people with any level of biomutant. And I think actually the higher you go up the ladder, some of the attacks are a little hard to manage. So you may just be content in being just a basic, regular biomutant. Nothing fancy there. But they also have a regular attack, and they also have a couple abilities as well. They have a left and a right trigger ability, which allow you to do different things. But most people seem to gravitate to getting excessive kills with the biomutant because the biomutant is stronger, and the biomutant seems to have, at least in my opinion, much more area of effect attacks, which allow you to really kind of get people stuck in a corner and just start wailing on them. Outside of that, though, that's pretty much the game. There's really not much left to do, because these characters are so iconic, and their not to say their move sets, but definitely their aesthetics are so predefined. There is no customization to speak of. It's not like Hunk could wear Leon's jacket, or you could put, different types of looks of characters. Not even know how many people would recognize, like, I don't know, Barry's beard as a vanity item or just something goofy, right? I'm not really sure what you'd even do with some of these. But there's no customization to speak of, and every character is already predetermined into what kind of weapon they're going to have. So you will start with Hunk. You will always have a machine gun, because that's what kind of Hunk's ability was. And I think everybody has like a service pistol, and they have different ability. They have different. Each character has different abilities and weapons, but there's no customization there. It's not like you could say, "Hey, I really want to play with this character, but I'd much rather have this ability." Now, will that customization come later? I don't know, maybe. I assume Resident Evil guys decided to try to make it balanced, or at least make it somewhat, like you knew what you were getting into. So it's like, oh, when you run into an enemy character, this is the kind of abilities you can expect. I'm not really sure. But the reason I kind of go off on that and aside in terms of customization, whether it be cosmetic or weapons or abilities, doesn't exist in this game. As a matter of fact, when you finish a round, it just kicks you right back to the lobby. There's no credit that you earn or score that you earn. I think it'd be very silly for them not to include, and I'm not saying we need a battle pass, but I think if they want this game to have legs, they're going to have to include something that keeps you coming back. Because I suspect most people will play it once or twice and say, oh, this is kind of neat, and then move on to the proper game. This will be bundled, as far as I can tell, with most copies of Resident Evil Village. I don't know if you have to have the digital deluxe edition or not. I haven't pre-ordered it yet. I'm waiting till we get a little closer to see if the performance is a little better on PlayStation 5, because that's where I really prefer to play it. But I will default to computer if I have to. So I'm not sure. I don't see any way to buy this game standalone, which I guess is the good thing, that it seems to be just kind of a sort of celebration of the game. And in that sense, I don't think I fault Capcom too much for kind of dialing this one in. If I was really nitpicking it, I would say that there are a lot of issues with some of the hit detection. There are a lot of very bizarre stun locks, which seem to be very inconsistent. Enemy, like when you're doing some of these pre-rendered animations, sometimes you have no idea if you're hitting anything. There isn't always a clear indication. I mean, yes, there's a bunch of blood on the ground, which I guess you could assume, but on some of your big abilities, you don't even know if you're actually hitting anybody or not. I just wonder, like, in, a month or two after this game comes out, will people still be playing it? Now, I think, like I said, I do honestly believe this is a great platform for Resident Evil to branch out. I would love to see, and I think that would be very easy to do, is just add in an NPC variant to this game to make it just a little bit more challenging, to give you like a zombies of like Call of Duty survival type mode, or like the horde mode that I mentioned from Gears of War 3. I think that would give this game a little more fun, because I mean, look, you're seeing these great score screens and then look, right back to the lobby. There's just nothing else to do. Will they add more characters as DLC? Will they add more characters as a seasonal thing? Will you be able to customize characters? None of this is really clear. And that, I think, is a little frustrating. And I guess I'll close it out with this. Capcom has been making a really big push lately to give you a Capcom account. Most people probably don't have one. Most people probably don't even know what the heck a Capcom account is. But if you're going to play this game, you're going to have one, at least on console. So when you load up the game for the first time, you have to use your phone to scan a barcode. It takes you to a website. You have to create a Capcom account. You have to link it to your existing console account and log in. It's a long, arduous chore. I don't understand why they're forcing that on the console players. I understand on other computer launchers and other games, they like to have these global accounts. It would be interesting to see if Capcom does anything with this Capcom account. As far as I could tell, it only just reverts back to your PlayStation user ID, and it doesn't even seem to sync with anything. As a matter of fact, after I finished this, I went back to my Capcom account just to see if it recognized that I had a login bonus or recognized if I had any kind of anything, and it didn't. And it was like, oh, that's kind of lame. So I guess my point is, with the push for this account, you would think that something greater is coming, and I'm not entirely sure that's the case. I wonder, honestly, how many people saw that this game was having issues its first night and chose not to come back and try it. I did on the very last night of the beta. I was finally successfully able to get in after it was delayed and after they put it on like a temporary hiatus because they were having matchmaking issues. And then I wonder how many people on top of that got through, realized they had to make an account, and then peaced out. So I feel like the people that are only playing this game left are reviewers like me who really wanted to get into it, or super fans, which obviously there will always be somebody playing an online game somewhere. I'm not really entirely sure, but like I said, I did have fun with it. I guess that's my takeaway here. It is an interesting concept. If you are a super fan of Resident Evil, I think you're going to appreciate it. If you're not a fan of Resident Evil, I don't think you're going to care. I don't think the nostalgia of the locations or of the character models or any of that is going to keep anybody, like without that hook, I don't know if the gameplay itself warrants enough fun. I just don't. But I think when you tie it with everything else, it does. So that's my thoughts on the Resident Evil Reverse game. I know that Capcom has another live stream scheduled later this week to talk about whatever's coming around the corner, probably to hype up the next demo. So if you like this content, stay tuned. There will be more Resident Evil discussion in the future, and I may do a live stream of that, or at least some sort of reaction, so stay tuned. And that's all I got. Hope you guys found this video informative. Hope you enjoyed some of the gameplay, at least kind of give you a sense of what it's about. And yeah, I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. So do me a favor, write a note, let me know what you're thinking. Thank you guys so much. Please take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.